Good afternoon. Today is the 25th of September, and we haven't done an analysis of a car manufacturer for a while. I think the last one that I would have done is why did Chevrolet pull out of Europe, which was quite a number of months ago. And I've had quite an interesting response to that video, and so I thought I'd do one for another manufacturer that we don't really see anymore, although we kind of do, and I'll explain why. That is Chrysler in Europe. I'm not going to cover some more of the history of Chrysler's European operations, because then we get into what happened to the Roots Group, what happened to Talbot, and things like that. That's something for a separate video. What I want to talk about is what's happened to Chrysler's European operations since the 1980s. Now, by Chrysler, I mean, of course, related brands like Dodge and Jeep and Plymouth. And as far as I'm aware, after having pulled out of Europe in 1978, when Chrysler sold their entire European operation to Peugeot Citroën for $1, which always cracks me up. They had a bit of a comeback in the sort of early 1990s. They set up a manufacturing facility in Austria, and so the right-hand drive Jeep Cherokees that you see in programs like Bugs, those were made in Austria. They had models like the Jeep Wrangler as well, and the stuff was popular enough to kind of start the import of other models like the Chrysler Neon, which was known as a Plymouth and a Dodge in America, and I think the first Chrysler Neons came over here in about 1996. You also sometimes saw the Chrysler New Yorker, and of course the Chrysler Voyager. Now, it wasn't called the Dodge Caravan over here. It was generally just referred to as the Chrysler Voyager or Chrysler Grand Voyager. Dodge didn't sell any cars in this country for some time. They'd stopped selling commercial vehicles, actually, because they were used as a brand on some of the old Roots Group things, like the Spacevan became the Dodge Spacevan, and the Dodge Series 50 that then became a Renault. And the factory where they used to make the Dodge Series 50 is still actually working. That's the sort of IBC plant over in Luton, as far as I know, that makes the Vauxhall Vivaro. So Chrysler's European operations, or rather the British ones, were doing pretty well. They were increasing a number of models, and then in 1998 there was the merger with Daimler-Benz, which lasted for about 10 years before they were sort of bought out in 2008 by Cerberus Capital Partners, and it all went a bit sort of wrong for them. But the new management decided they'd introduce more models. So the Dodge brand appeared, and we had cars like the Dodge Caliber, which I wouldn't say is a great car. The Dodge Nitro, again, not a great car. The Dodge Avenger, not a great car. The Chrysler Sebring, and I actually drove a Chrysler Sebring. I had it as a loan car from a Chrysler Jeep Dodge dealership in 2009. It was a 57 plate, so it was a couple of years old by then, and the interior plastics have the same quality as a packet of Boaster biscuits, little plastic trays you get on one of those. They were terrible. The car was very well equipped. It was the limited model, and it had a 2-litre Volkswagen Group diesel engine in it with a 6-speed manual gearbox. That was probably the best thing about the car. The rest of it wasn't great. The parking sensors at the front had actually broken by the time that the car had been in service. A lot of the interior was already a bit worn. It didn't feel particularly nice to drive. It felt a bit large. You know, you could just buy, I don't know, an Accord or a Mondeo or something that would be a lot better. You do occasionally see these Sebrings around, and Dodge Avenger, which is a very similar sort of car. There were other engines available in the Sebring and the Avenger. stuff like the 2 litre, 2.4 litre, and the 2.7 litre V6. But I'm not really here to talk about that. I'm talking about things more in general. So we did get some oddities like the Plymouth Chrysler, what I think was kind of called a Chrysler over here. We got the Chrysler PT Cruiser, which was, again, not a favourite of mine. It's not a great car in my opinion, although the Sebring and the PT Cruiser got convertible versions. Then pretty much all the sort of stuff apart from a Chrysler Voyager was discontinued. The Jeep stuff, that continues selling to this day, but everything Chrysler apart from Dodge, apart from the Voyager, that stopped being sold in about 2009, around the time when they were bailed out. The other thing was that once Fiat took over at about that time, 2009, 2010, they started to sell their own Lancia branded cars in Europe as Chryslers over here. So we got the Chrysler Delta. I've reviewed one of those actually. If you want to look, I'll put a link in the description below. The Chrysler Upsilon, and yes, those were cars that were interesting. They were all right as Lancias, and the Chrysler Delta is a surprisingly good second-hand car if you can find one. They're only imported 900 of them, so there's not many around. But overall, it didn't quite work out for them. And once again, you know, Dodge had gone from Britain. 2009, the reintroduction of Chrysler, or like the expansion of Chrysler, apart from the 300C and the Voyager, which were the ones which were non-Fiat models, those were American made. That only lasted till about 2014, and so you don't see Chrysler branded cars or Dodge branded cars in Britain anymore. Now, of course, with Fiat being the same company as Chrysler and having other brands that you'd be familiar with, like Alfa Romeo and Fiat themselves, you would, you know, see a lot of common engineering. The Alfa Romeo Giulietta is very similar to the Chrysler Delta, for example. The old Fiat Bravo was as well. The Tipo is a different sort of platform, but you know, if you want to buy, you know, the sort of legacy of this stuff, the Lancia Ypsilon, amazingly, is still being made. I don't know how that's still going. Apparently, it's still on the Lancia website. It's the only model Lancia make, and I think at some point that will just disappear. So that's the last model that would have been sold as a Chrysler in Britain. Will soon disappear from the market entirely. Jeep's been very successful though. They have recently introduced their new Wrangler. They've got various smaller things like the Compass and the Cherokee, and you know that they're not bad. I hear the Renegade Trailhawk is particularly good. Planet Auto did a review of one of those recently, and you know, they continue to have mixed fortunes. Alfa Romeo, Jeep, and Fiat, which are the only three FCA brands that are sold over here. You know, Maserati and Ferrari, I could have count them a bit separately from that. But yes, that's pretty much what happened. They kept to reintroduce these brands that had disappeared from the UK market several times, and they were successful for a while, but it kind of all went a bit wrong for them. So if you found that video to be informative, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Please don't forget to leave a comment below and to like this video. I've got a Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Lloyd Vehicle Consulting. I've also got a website, which is www.lloydvehicleconsulting.co.uk. If you wish me to source a car for you, it doesn't have to be anything I've mentioned in the video, of course, then do get in touch with me. I've got a contact tab on the home page of my website. Thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching.